Greetings. Welcome again, Rastafari Reasoning. We're here with the good brother Wsir Heru Maat of the White Lotus Temple operating out of St. Lucia. Greetings, my brother.
Uncle Jocelyn, greetings, brethren.
Yes, So, I and I cross paths on the same internet. Um, I really reach out to the eye when I cite certain information and things you deal with and whatnot. And I realize like he's a powerful brother, have something to say. So I would like you to introduce yourself and give us a little background into who is the I.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in St. Lucia, and I started trotting the path of Rastafari as a teenager, around 16. And, it was a great learning experience and a great turnaround for me because most of us are brought up in the Roman Catholic, in the Christian doctrine. That's what's prevalent in the Caribbean. So I got a little bit closer to my African history, going down to the Nyabingi house in Beaufort, and beating drums, smoking weed and chanting. And then when I reached around, say, 19 or 18, I was reunited with my cousin, who happens to be one of the first Rastafari on the island. He's been a Rast now for around 50 years. And he introduced me really to African history, all the great authors in African history, like Dr. Ben, Shikanta Diop, John Henry Clark, Amos Wilson, Ivan Van Sertima, George G.M. James. So I got a lot of information and we stuck together. It's been like 2 decades now. And he's the one who influenced me to go out there and try to raise up the youth. So this is basically my journey coming into the awareness of my history and knowing who I am, finding my true identity. And I wrote the two journals, Wohem Mesu, which means a rebirth, speaking of our perspective as Rastafari,
Well,
who have
hold on the eye. We ain't reached up to the
okay,
journal I raters yet.
yeah,
If one's not aware, this literature here we're holding up is a
yeah,
journal what the brother produced. And this is the second issue of it. It named Wehem Mesu. And we're going to get into it a little earlier still. Yeah, man. So, within the Tradena and the name White Lotus Temple now, what is the, what is the, how this coming as the White Lotus Temple and what is what
Well, there's the blue lotus and the white lotus. The I chose the white lotus because white symbolizes purity, cleanliness, and the lotus itself, it's a plant which represents life. And of course, it passes through all the elements coming from the mud under the water, passes through the water, comes up in the air, and opens up to the sun. So it's actually a kind of a metaphor for our experience. We are coming from the muddy waters of slavery and colonization, and we have to go through the cleansing of the water, the mental clarity of the air, and the brilliant spirit of the sun. So this is basically a metaphor for our own experience in the Caribbean, or should I say, in the in the wake of colonization.
mm-hmm. All right. So, in St. Lucia,
Mm.
what's the general population of your island?
About 180,000, close to 200,000 people.
And how much far are you say on the island you feel, if you estimate?
Well, they have no far right, but already a lot of people have dread on not far right, and they'll tell you straight, I'm not a Ras. I just have the locks for style. So there's a lot of, but I would say maybe around 20,000, maybe less.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, maybe less. Yeah,
Alright.
but the numbers dwindling because we not in as we were before. We stagnant. You know?
Mm. So this notion of stagnation, elaborate on what is you mean by that.
Well, already when I was a youth man, as a Rasik making Kidrel, and I go down to the waterfall, I had to sit down I have to wait in line. I had to wait in line for me to go under that waterfall because they have like around 20 brethren in the spring. So them time you had to put something on 3 stones and bubble up breadfruit or something, while we wait.
Right.
But right, compare that to right now. Them place like desolate. Some of them bush grow over them thing there. You don't want to go there. So you can see the vibes. It's dying.
Hmm. Is well some is dying or it going through a rebirth or transformation.
Well, the rebirth always coming through the next generation. So if the next generation grab it, it's on a downward spiral. So we have to inspire the youth because we stepping out soon,
Yeah man.
and the thing have to live.
Yes I. Alright. So coming to the arts and crafts before we reach inside of the thing because one thing I would let people know the brother does make some real exquisite carvings and some is wire bending, wire jewelry and thing. You know what I mean? I don't know. You don't have none on set to give anybody an example.
Let me see. Hold on here. Let me get it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see.
I know if all you could see that or hang up there. That is one of the carvings what the brother make. No?
You really want to fall there, boy? Right there. Rastafari.
Alright.
I have some of the works there. This is a bracelet.
Yeah man. Yes I. So that symbol there. Tell them all about the
Yeah,
symbol.
this is the you can call this the Wajet or the Eye of Heru, which represents basically insight.
Mm-hmm.
And insight, it has in it the senses, because you need all the senses to get insight. So this is just the Wajet in a bracelet. And I deal with the crystals. This is an appetite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm.
This is a topaz.
And each of these stones now carry a certain vibration, a certain frequency, a certain energy. I ain't hearing you. You have to unmute yourself. They like you press mute.
Yeah, sorry, this is the topaz. It's very good. As you can see, it's yellow, relating to the solar plexus, which is your power, which is your self-esteem.
Mm-hmm. No, alright. So
One is a quartz.
the eye title is of a Kemetic tradition, So
Yeah.
and currently in Rastafari, have some conversations taking place as to whether even this Kemetic identification and orientation, if it is legitimate within Rastafari, or if all kind of different perspectives. So
Right.
I want to hear the I take on it, because the I come like a person on the forefront of this or in the foundation then of that kind of orientation. Or
Okay.
you have to say it concerning that, you know.
Right. Well, in the foundation of Rastafari, we tend to think that it's orientated in Christianity,
True.
but that's not true. Rastafari birthed out of the Pocomania, which came from the Kumina, which is from the Congo spiritual system. Because if you go into the Bingi house, you can see the chanting, the dancing, very much like the Pocomania and the spiritual possessions back in that time. And even if you go in the Christian church, you still see they acting out the possessions. You know, so our culture had to do with a lot of rhythm and dance and movement. Yeah. So the, after this, the concepts of Christianity, since it was more homogeneous, everyone knew it because of the Bible. That was kind of incorporated into it, just like in the Santeria, incorporate Christianity. Even in the OBI, you have the Christian saints in there too. So it's all incorporated, and the Rastafari became more biblical. I have this book here, the culture, history, and universal spread of Rastafari, 2 essays by E.S.P. Macpherson.
Mm-hmm.
This book, I doubt you can get this book again. I think it's out of print.
Out of print.
Yeah.
Hold up that title there again for the screen there for the.
You see, I think you'll see that bit
Yeah,
better there.
yeah, hold it further. The culture, history, and universal spread of Rastafari, 2 essays. Yes, P. McPherson.
E.S.P. Macpherson. And in this, he goes into the Masonic orientation of Hebert. He goes into the youth black faith, how they turned against the Kumina orientation, and they leaned more to a biblical interpretation. And they said, no, we don't want no candle lights, because Rastafari is the light. So we don't, but it was the candles, man like Hebert was lighting, because Hebert brought in the African masonry into Jamaica when he left Costa Rica, because he was also, I think, a president of a branch of the UNIA. So when he returned in 1930s, he set up the Mystic Masons. I have a take of it there if I can read a piece for you.
This
Hold
is
on.
this is inside of the Wehem Mesu.
Yeah, I
Oh,
put it also in the Wehem Mesu.
right.
This is Hibbert
Mm-hmm.
with the glove, one glove.
True,
That's where Edward Emmanuel Charles got the one glove from,
true.
because he was one of the teachers along with Dunkley and Hines and Hebert and all of them. But remember, all these founders were African Masons.
Mhm. So you're saying that certain founders was of the Masonic orientation.
Right.
With
Because at that time, what was going around is Prince Hall Masonry.
Prince Hall.
Yeah, Prince Hall Masonry.
Or one who might have never heard about Prince Hall Masonry, like, what is that? Like,
Prince Hall was like born in, some say it's Barbados. And he went to live in America, and he established the first African lodge. He was denied by the Americans, I think, and I think he's an Englishman that consecrated the lodge. And he had the first African Freemasonic order in the Americas. And he was also an activist for equal rights, you know. So a lot of many great black leaders were actually Prince Hall Masons.
Really. All right. So let me come to the journal now. What inspired you to put out this piece of literature?
Well, it's called Wahem Mesu. Wahem meaning to repeat, and Mesurin meaning birth. So it means the rebirth of our people. And it was to give a Caribbean outlook, or I should say a diasporian outlook on our decay, our degradation, and how we can fix it. You know, in there I talk about rites of passage, net akeper, the rites of passage for the youth, and what the aspects of their history they need to know, what part of basic hygiene, how to recognize good character, you know, what's the meaning of love, you know. So in this journal, I'm actually trying to give the people a sense of what it is to be African, because we all know we have to learn to be African again. And I also talk about the Boko, which is the community house, which has disappeared on the island. Before they used to have community houses, but right now, you know, it's just somebody appearing with a lot of money and running for politics, and people hardly know them, you know. So in this book, in these journals, I'm trying to educate the people, because we have a lot of books. I mean, because I inherited books from my teacher, and plus I'm still getting more books. So we were looking to the White Lotus Temple is basically about teaching the youth their African history. So we have to contend now with would we teach creationism or evolution? You know, and all this would change the way that we as Rastafari would look unto Haile Selassie at first. We would no longer see him as the Jehovah of the Bible.
So you're talking about a shift in paradigm there. So in terms of like where you now say creation or evolution, or could these two concepts be reconciled even into
They
into
could be they could be reconciled, but 6,000 years is very, very different from 15 billion years. So it's either you start being real about how creation really happened, how the earth really formed, the different ancient archaic human beings that walked the earth before the development of the Homo sapiens sapien with the cerebral cortex. So when you put it in that context, that would lead to you going to the Nile Valley, going into Kemet, going into Ethiopia. And it would take you out of what they call the Middle East. You know, it would take you out of the biblical perspective you have of creation, and then you would know that okay, the earth is millions and billions of years old. You know, so it's a whole change of paradigm. You're no longer on the outside looking in, which is the Eurocentric paradigm. You're on the inside looking out. So you see everything spiritual before you see it physical. You know?
all right. So on the island there is how many you have plenty participants in the White Lotus Temple, or is basically the eye soul works, or how it's there?
Well, not many, because I'm very picky as to the persons I let enter the White Lotus Temple. And it's get towards the youth, because a lot of the elders are stuck. they have this love for the Abrahamic religion, and it's hard for them to transcend into, because remember, when Rastafari was born, we didn't have many books. The internet wasn't there, and we used to say the half that has never been told. When will the lion speak its truth? Instead of always the story always coming from the hunter. So right now we are in the age where the lion has its say. But most of us are not listening. We are not reading. And I must say that's one of the biggest problems I've come to find in Rastafari and if African people. We don't read. And that will lead to our downfall, because we need to know what happened before, because what happened before is still in the now. Because in African spirituality, the past, present, and future is the now. It's like a flowing stream, So what happened back then, it's still in your consciousness. So it's still in the now. The only time it's in the past, it's when it's forgotten.
Like how you say, you would call somebody name, and it's only when the name don't call again that you don't exist again.
Right. Yeah. So sometimes you have deja vu. You have deja vu. You see something already. So how did you see it and it hadn't happened yet? So in going back to the African worldview, because we had to borrow a worldview. We didn't have a worldview. And the worldview we borrowed was a Eurocentric worldview. And that means disconnection. That means individualism. That means patriarchy. So when you shift from that paradigm, you enter the African paradigm of you naturally born to be a helper.
That's the community. So, alright, the works and the vibes that you're up to, the training. You say you're training, you're initiating the youths into such activities.
Yes, that's what it's all about. I have my students because, the books have to pass to somebody. So I have to keep going after I'm long gone. So I have to train the youth to take over. But there are many youth out there, not necessarily Rastafari youth, because I think Rastafari, through following the Bible, has followed that concept of segregation, separation. But really, we should be the ones there teaching the people of their history. And we are the ones, because when you learn African spirituality, it's unlike Western religion. African spirituality would border more on psychology. Because when you learn of the Orishas and the Necheru, you learn of the different aspects of your psyche.
So hold on, my brother. Remember, we have our audience, so when you're talking about the Orisha and the Neteru, you have to give a little backdrop.
Okay. Well, the Orisha and the Necheru are aspects of the one source, the one spirit that inhabits everything. Now, to go to approach that spirit, it's not possible. That's why we call it the Amen. The Amen means the hidden one. But that hidden one is revealed through different cosmic principles. And these principles are given anthropomorphic form to bring to the understanding of the human mind.
Anthropomorphic. What I mean
Yeah,
now?
yeah. Anthropomorphic means giving it a human appearance. You know, giving also would give them a spouse. You know, how we would be able to overstand the cosmic law. We would have to bring it into a kind of, you would say, a tangible kind of reality.
Right.
That's why we chose the animals, because the animals were our teachers. And it's actually through the animals we witness the principles, different principles of the universe. Because the animals were there long before us. You know? And the animals helped us to survive too.
Yes, I.
So the Necharu, so the when you learn about the Necharu and you learn about the cosmic principles, then you learn that okay, there's different aspects of the psyche, because Wsir, who they call Osiris, is represents the subconscious. Heru represents the will, the conscious mind. Set represents the ego, or Set represents memory, trance. So in studying the Necharu, and you start to incorporate it into your life, that
So,
is where you begin to see and notice the invisible, the intangible. Because
if a one wanted to read certain source documents then concerning these things and to understand, what would be some literature you would point them to?
okay, there's Maat, the 11 laws of God, Raul Nefa Amen. That's a good one.
Yeah, man.
A very good book to understand the coming of the modern man in Africa would be Shikanta Diop's Civilization, Barbarism. If you want to learn about Congo cosmology, what we call in Kemet Ra'atum, um, and what they would call the, let me see if I could remember, Kala, Tukala, Luvemba, and Muswani, which represents the cycle of life, sunrise, midday, sunset, and midnight. So birth, maturity, death, and rebirth, which is the actual cross. That's what really the cross represents, you know. But what they gave us in church, the Europeans, was a crucifix. Also, we have the African cosmology of the Bantu Congo by Dr. Fukiao. This is a good book to read to understand that a human being cannot even be described without his relationship to the community. So
Mm-hmm.
this is what we really lost, our communal living. Because remember, the Bible is a book only about your relationship to a divine source. The Bible has nothing about family. Even the God of the Bible took someone else's woman to have a child. Even the God of the Bible asked a man to sacrifice his son to see if he loves him. So wasn't that God, the God of the child as well? So the individualism is in the Bible, but when you go to your African spirituality, it's more communal, more social ties, you know?
True, true. But so, well, I hear in you say in the Bible it have certain principles or certain ideologies that undesirable. Then, if you but so how do I the reconcile the practice of the His Majesty and the Ethiopian tradition with the African cosmology then or the worldview?
Okay. Well, I know His Majesty was a Mason as well. And I'm not really speaking of the English Freemasonry, like Knights of the Garter. I'm more speaking of the Black Lions, the Black Lion Lodge, because there are underground houses in Africa that hold a lot of sacred knowledge. His Majesty was initiated in the Pyramid of Unas of the 5th dynasty before he sat on the throne.
Now, put a pin stop there and repeat what you now say. And if you could give us some kind of indication as to where you got such of information.
His Majesty was initiated in the Pyramid of Unas, where the first recorded writings of the Medu Neter are. I shouldn't say of the Medu Neter, but of a lot of sacred funerary texts, pyramid texts. And His Majesty was initiated there. Now,
where you get that information?
I got that information from a book. I think it was was the Jahug magazine. I will get that book for you. But there's an elder that has it, and that man holding on to that so tight. I think I'll have to bring him with it. Right. Because yeah, Moa holding on to that. You know, because there's a few of us here in St. Lucia that are on the Kemetic journey.
True.
You know, and these few are very few. We're very few. Because the Bingi house, and especially the Bobo Shanti is a very Abrahamic religious group. So when you're speaking with them, you might lose them in the whole African spiritual system, because this is all the Bible is basically all they know. Or sometimes they try to fit it together, they try to make it mesh, but it can't mesh, because we're dealing with a whole different culture of the sun. When we had temples, they were still in tents. So the Arabic culture, which is the culture of the Bible, is not African. It's not African culture, you know. So they will have to either transform, you know, go into the information and transform themselves, or they may cease to inspire anyone anymore with the abundance of knowledge we have coming from all directions.
Well, it's strange, you know, because it's like, on one hand, I would say that the Bobo Shanti does exhibit a lot of African features with the dress code and certain cultural aspects now. But then, as you say, I say they might be steeped in certain Abrahamic
In religiosity. One of the our biggest enemy, we have to face it. Our biggest enemy is economics. Poverty is our worst enemy. So, a lot of Rastafari have their Sabbath as a Saturday, and don't play with that. Ironically, Saturday is the day where everyone makes money. You can make more money on a Saturday than you've made for the entire week. So, how can we let religiosity prevent us from setting up a good foundation for ourselves and our family?
Well, a man might say that you're inside of the Babylon system, and it's like them control the system, so like render to Caesar what is owed to Caesar, or that kind of way. Then like, I say, well,
Because
because
they say,
Babylon say you do a Saturday is when they whatever it is that you
Mhm,
have to stop where you might have
mhm,
planned to go and make money for them. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Well, you see, it's the religiosity because the 7 days wasn't 7 days. That come from I think the where I saw this. I saw this in the Zoroastrian and also the Assyrians. They had seven time periods. It wasn't 7 days, it was 7 time periods. But before we had 10 days. We had 10-day weeks
Right.
before the 7 day. So if you watch the 10-day calendar, when is the Sabbath? God never give nobody that. The Sabbath is your day of rest. The day you choose, the most accommodative day for you and your family to rest and recalibrate.
So in terms of like liberty, in terms of the things where you eat and certain things like that, did I adopt any new kind of nutrition principles, or you know what I mean, like Rastafari I would say, well, we and I eat ital, but all the I
Well,
the ital inside of this the Kemetic paradigm then.
yeah. Well, Rastafari, from long time, Rastafari has been the vanguards of African liberty and African what we call livet, not eating animals and but there are a lot of different aspects that we have to look into. For instance, a brethren go say, he not eating no flesh, he eating fish. And then you'll see him eating a slice of pizza. You'll see him eating a little cheese. Now, cheese is a bigger killer than fish. So, it's them things there. We cannot, especially for a smoker, cheese is dangerous. You unmute there, King.
Oh, I say you're talking about the mucus.
Sorry about that.
No problem. You're talking about the mucus.
Yeah, the mucus, because that's what the cheese is, mucus. So if a lot of us need to back out because we have the COPD problem,
What
We
I
have the,
stand.
we have the COPD problem in St. Lucia.
COPD now.
Yeah, COPD is the hard breathing. And you see man's shoulder turn into hanger and he can't breathe.
Hmm.
I see a lot of Rastafari brethren go down higher in the last couple of years. That's why me and my elder, we looking to write a book on Rastafari in St. Lucia because all the elders are dropping,
Hmm.
But that's a portion we inherited as the elders inherited in Rastafari. The hardships, the the days where you can't eat properly, even when it comes to love, having a good woman, having a family. A lot of elders some of them never have children, you know? Some of them living all alone, you know? Now, when you have a family, you will take care of yourself sometimes much better than if you by yourself. Sometimes you wake up, you say, well, today I'm not cooking. But if you have a family, you'll do a good breakfast. You'll eat well because you want your children to eat well.
Is something you say there, because I was reading His Majesty autobiography, and it have a part where he talking about his father, and when his father wife passed away, used to just go without eating food and thing, and His Majesty, say as a boy, he used to come into the room and very respectfully and say, well, it's time to eat food and XYZ, and his father used to commend him for reminding him that it's time to eat food now. You know what I mean? So yeah, something to say there. Hey, you're on mute.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I come in. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so that was a anecdote onto what the brethren was saying there, Yes, I seeing someone's tuning on the YouTube dot big up yourself, Wesley, my brother Wesley, big up yourself, Rastafari, I don't know. Man like Kafra, Mes Jahuti, respect and love, Heal up all Rastafari International. Hope one's tune in and find the conversation fulfilling and whatnot, Waiting on the brother to come back from the little intermission. And the time running up on we too, because it's only about an hour we are there to stay, Probably be hearing more from the brother still. Upful one. What I could do is I'll show you some craft what I call for from the brother. Down in Trinidad I coming from. And I place a little order with the king and he sent some art and craft with me, I'm going to show the eye on them. Yeah, man.
Rastafari.
Rastafari.
Well, yeah.
Going on display to the massive and them the eye handiworks.
Yes.
If you could tell them what symbols it have their meaning. Yeah.
Well, the ankh, of course, means life. It's a wood, means life. And the symbol below it is the Gainyami or Jainyami, which means the omnipotence of the creator. And the symbols, it has Anku Jasaneb, which means life, prosperity, and health. And if you turn it around, the other way, you turn it upside down, it has this Sankofa bird to go back and get what we left behind, which is our minds.
Yes, I. And I have the other one here too.
Okay. Oh, well, this one is the Was scepter at the top. The Was means power. And then you have the Ankh, of course, means life. Under that, you have the Jed, which represents the spine of a Sar. It means stability. So it means stability in life is power. Because you need to be persistent, but after you're persistent, you have to be consistent. And the symbol, you have Ra, the symbol for Ra, which is the circle and a dot in the middle, also representing a woman's nipple, a woman's breast. So, yeah, and the star at the bottom is the 5-pointed star. That's the star of Sirius. Or is it the 6-pointed?
I want the 6-point.
Yeah, that's the 6-pointed, so that represents the coming together of all the elements. The 6-pointed star.
Yeah, man. So, anybody find them works there nice, you could always hit up the brother on Facebook, or you could even hit up me and I could put you on the same way,
Yeah. Because I feel, because when you work around with these symbols, a lot of people ask, what does it mean? Everybody watches it curiously. Because this is the first step in knowledge, curiosity. So they'll ask what it's about, and now when you start to explain it, or you can take them on a journey back through time. and give them the practical uses of these symbols.
When you refer to the practical uses, what you mean?
The practical uses are learning what they mean and incorporating the significance of that understanding in how you deal with yourself and how you deal with people. For instance, say the Wsir scepter. The Wsir scepter is your power over your animal self. Because we have our animal instincts, our animal self, and then we have our divine self. Just like when you have the Sefek Bara, what they call the chakra system. You have free below and you have the free above. The free below represents the lower base energies of survival, of self-esteem, of your natural power and your sexuality. And then you have the heart, which represents love, which we all have to clear. The heart to reach expression, intuition, and truth and oneness. So it's basically telling you that you have the power to control your animal self, your impulses. So all symbols have a meaning. You unmute there.
Yeah, you see, both of you had to keep each other on point, What I'm saying is, yeah, these symbols not too long ago, one would be frightened, certain man frightened when they see certain symbols, and
Certain man still frightened.
the ankh have become popularized along the way, but
Yeah.
a lot of the other symbols and things still to be discovered and still need to get the full up on it, So I get
Yeah, man. Because remember, we are rebuilding. We are rebuilding ourselves because we have new information. We cannot stay in the past and say we crystallizing people in the past. Because the thing is a growing thing. Trust me, His Majesty would have been even a greater man if he had the computer.
True.
But he had books. And he was an avid reader. He said, read voraciously. So we have to dive. We have to become literate again. We have to become writing again. We have to start writing. We have to start to inspire. Because in the Caribbean, we see there's a lack of inspiration. It's not we don't have manpower, we don't have land, we don't have fruits, we don't have food. It's just individualism. We have the division of the parties, we have the division of the religions, we have the division of the class system. That's a lot of division. And ironically, we come together under banners of division. So we as Rastafari have to start coming out, knocking our drums again, wearing our colors again, but come speaking the truth. We cannot be perpetuating lies given to us just for us to feel comfortable. We have to leave our comfort zone. The elders have to take the knowledge from the youth. They have to just guide the youth. Just because knowledge is one thing, but inspiration is the next. Knowledge will speak to the left brain, inspiration will speak to the right brain. So we have to know how to combine the two.
So how do I see the role of artists, music artists as well as other mediums of art in this liberation?
Okay, Irie. Well, for us to know our purpose, we have to go back to our origins. When we go back to our origins, we'll find our purpose. Because all of us are here to wake the sleeping giant. And all of us were given talents to raise that giant. So that's the difference. We have different talents. But most of us, our talent lies latent, which is the same word. But one energy is asleep and one energy is awake. Now, those that are talented in the music, they have to seek out the purpose. And when we come together with all different talents,
And therefore, I like how you decode that. You say it have talented and it have
yeah, they
latent.
have talent and latent.
Mm-hmm.
Latent means potential. Talent means kinetic.
True.
Because the English language is a what you call an esoteric language. It was created like that. Because remember, it's still African, you know, because it was taken from the Latin, from the Roman, and where they learned it from the Africans. The Africans give them a language, a written language. You know? And then it right now we have the English. The English is still an offshoot of the original thing, which is the Medu Nature. But in it, you have the esoteric, like you see, your heart. Your heart, you plant seeds in your heart to that will grow, sometimes in the physical world, and you'll be able to feed and shelter.
That's right.
Also, you plant seeds in the earth. Now, earth and heart is the same word, just the H taken from the back and put in the front.
Highly. Yes, I. Yeah, man. So you're saying the artists and them need to overstand their purpose before they just go and
Yeah, yeah, of course. What the artists need is information. They have little information, so they rhyme in and doing things with what they have. But if these guys are inspired and know the fullness of the African history, you know the kind of tune, the kind of lyrics, because that's what we are in tune with. Rhythm. Rhythm is part of our culture. Dance is part of how we give praises. You know, that's why the European cannot be a Rastafari. The European can be a Rastafari sympathizer.
no. That's a kind of touchy point the I raise there.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Because I have some brothers, white brothers, within terms of morality and things upright and whatnot, or as far as as far as my dealings with them. So how it is, if a man go tell you, well, there's discrimination or there's segregation, it is, or how you go say, well, why you would say, well, a white man cannot be a Rasta then? How you make that statement?
I would say a Rastafari. I mean, a European. I wouldn't say white man, a European, because Rastafari is a African liberation movement where you are in tune with the struggle of your ancestors, you know? And you are aware that there is a decay, there is a disintegration of your people. So it's up right now is to rebuild your people. But then when the European comes in, we start to compromise to allow them in. But there are many other doors. Rastafari do have the only door. So they can go to the other doors. You'll get morality there as well. Rastafari do own morality. Rastafari do own virtues. But Rastafari is on a mission. Rastafari is not a religion. Rastafari is a sacred Masonic order. Because Masonry come from the first temple builders in Africa. And these tools we use to build the temples also were symbolic tools we use to build our character. That's why man say, everything level, you on your square. So
Thing balance, yeah.
everything balance, Maat. Rastafari. The bobo with the left hand, the heart, balance, you know. So a lot of the, just like when you go in the Bingi house, the center pillar surrounded by 12 pillars, that's the sun, the constellations around the sun.
Well, a man might say it's Christ and the 12 disciples are Christ.
But we know Christ is myth because the original Christ we're talking about, Yeshua. And in fact, the original Christ, the first Christ recorded was Imhotep. But when you're talking about Yeshua, Yeshua was hung on a tree along with his 5 disciples. That is written in the Sanhedrin. But then they took the story and they put it into a astrological theology, which, of course, in the Bible you find they talk about like Nisan. When is Nisan? Nisan is
The names of the months.
Nisan is the equinox, March 21st. That's Nisan. Everything happens on Nisan because there's a lot of numerology, astrotheology, biochemistry. All this is in the Bible, coded. This is coded because they had to write things in 2 tongues to protect it. You know, because everything that's sacred must be a secret.
Yes, I. Well, Wsir, Heru, Maat, White Lotus Temple. We come in to the end of the segment, you know. It was a upful discussion. Lots of things to go and ruminate on and meditate and come again.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks and praise, you know. You have anything to bless the item, bless the massive who listening in or might check out the video in the future?
Well, one thing I have to say to my Rastafari people, we need not destroy a man to build a deity. Because the man can stand up on his 2 feet as God. If you give him the power to know everything, you'll have to take away his power of courage. You'll have to take away his power of, even though everything seems dismal, that he can still have faith that, and courage to see things through. That's not omniscience. That's courage. So we need not destroy our king, our master, to build up that Eurocentric creature in the Bible. Hetepu.
All right, Rastafari, bless man. Uncle Jaseneb in the Kemetic.
Anguja Sinebnem.
Bless the love, respect.
Duawu.